kind of a socialist generation. And I know people kind of get scared of that word. We want to see like basic human needs met.
Freeze rent is great. I think making buses free is really great. I think some of the tax on the rich.
That all sounds like an ideal, and I feel like that should be kind of everywhere.
We're poor. Our generation is poor. The job market is terrible. I mean, I think there's a way to get everything.
Socialism, the once widely shunned ideology, is gaining popularity in America, especially among young people. Now the platform is emerging as a growing wing of the Democratic Party. Big question is why? Why haven't we learned from the past? Over the next hour, we're going to tackle those big questions. Welcome to Fox Business In Depth, The Cost of Socialism. I'm Brian Brenberg. 62% of people under 30 hold a favorable view of socialist ideas, lured by the promise of goodies, rent freezes, free buses, and government groceries.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging.
Tax the rich is a rallying cry. Abolishing private property is a radical left dream. Capitalists hate it, and they're sounding off.
Blah. Makes me want to puke, Stuart. That's how I feel about that. Listen, these are college kids. They've never probably had a job in their lives. They've grown up probably coddled, reading books about how the world is, but they've never been in the real world. Socialism doesn't work.
The great Margaret Thatcher said it won't work, and here's why. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. Coming up this hour, we'll talk firsthand to people who escaped socialism and its damaging effects. We'll also talk to real estate investor Grant Cardone, who warns about an even bigger wealth exodus out of blue cities. But first, Republican Ohio gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy is here. Vivek, welcome to the program. I want to kick it off with this line from the Wall Street Journal. Socialism is incompatible with human nature. I think that's a fascinating insight. What do you think?
I think it's a fascinating claim. I think what's even more true is that it is incompatible with American nature. Other countries have tried socialism through the course of human history, and it hasn't worked. If you think about the founding of our country, 1776, it was the year of the Declaration of Independence, yes, but it was also the year of the wealth of nations. And I think what made America great the first time is our unbridled spirit of ambition, the pursuit of excellence without any government or bureaucracy standing in your way from achieving the maximum of your God-given potential. That's what the heart of American capitalism is really about. And so, yes, it might go to human nature, but I think the heart of American nature, the heart of American national identity, is that unapologetic pursuit of excellence. And that's what socialism fundamentally is incompatible with, it doesn't mix with, and really has no place in our national culture.
Yeah, I would build on that a little bit and argue that part of what makes us human is our creativity. And that's a process that can't be driven from the top down. It has to bubble up from the bottom. And that's what capitalism has been so powerful in unleashing. I think the folks who preside over socialism often think they've got the best answers. But as we know, the best answers often come from places that you least expect. And that's the power of the dynamism of a capitalistic system.
Absolutely. I mean, the greatest inventions known to the history of mankind were generated not by centralized government action, but by providing the space for that freedom, that creativity of mind, which I just think is such a distinctive part of the American creed itself. Now, it's easy to sit here and criticize socialism, but where I'd actually like to level some degree of healthy criticism is even to our own side, I say on the Republican Party, on the conservative side, where we haven't yet done a good enough job now of standing for the merits of capitalism itself. I think sitting around and criticizing socialism, that's easy, arguably lazy. But where we're falling short is we don't have a political party that is doing a good enough job of making the affirmative case for capitalism, the greatest system known to the history of mankind, to lift people up from poverty. The left lambasts capitalism, but increasingly one of the things we're seeing on the right is an apologism for capitalism as well. And that too is what's allowing this this void to be filled by the creeping up and this percolating of socialism's popularity. And I think that there are some things we're going to be able to do as a Republican Party. I'm looking to do even in our own state of Ohio, to be able to revive that love of free enterprise, that love of entrepreneurialism, that love and revere of that idea of the American dream, which you don't even hear that much about in American politics anymore. That's the job of a modern conservative movement, is to stand for those values, which I don't think we're doing enough, and I'm going to do my part to change that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when you look around our world, we hear all these doom and gloom predictions about artificial intelligence killing millions of jobs, and some, especially on the left, I would say, are using that idea to promote things like universal basic income, right? You've got this writer for Forbes who says, while artificial intelligence promises extraordinary productivity gains, it simultaneously threatens to displace vast swaths of the workforce. This isn't a distant dystopian vision, they write. It's an immediate economic reality demanding proactive solutions. And here it comes. A truly universal basic income might be one. So Vivek, there you have somebody stepping into the void, so to speak, and saying, I want to bring a socialistic solution to this problem. What do you say to that?
Look, I think there's part of our human nature, irrespective of financial need, that is wired to need to work, to fulfill our desire for purpose and meaning and grounding in our lives. You think about the mental health epidemic, opioid addiction, fentanyl usage. A lot of these are symptoms of the loss of purpose. Now, you take a look at the AI revolution, there's opportunities, there's risks. But one of the great opportunities, and the most important one, is enhancing the productivity of what human beings are actually able to accomplish. So instead of focusing on how that takes yesterday's jobs, I think we should look at how it creates new jobs and opportunities in the future. May not even be traditional jobs, but new ways of being productive, not just as workers, but as human beings. And instead of the discussion around universal basic income, where they're coming from is saying that, well, if all jobs are taken and everybody's so productive and AI is generating this wealth, why not distribute that as universal basic income? That's the other argument for the other side. I favor a different concept, which others have discussed, of universal extreme wealth. Let's talk about equity participation at a young age. If productivity is that much higher, I'd love to see the S&P 500 and all major indices outperform the next century more than they did the last, because of the power of AI. And then how do a generation of young American citizens actually participate in that through equity participation, starting at a young age, allowing the magic of what Albert Einstein called the most powerful force in the universe, compound interest, to start working at a young age. And if you just do the basic math, the S&P 500, let's say it returned 15% for the next 100 years, which is higher than maybe the 13% it's historically averaged. That means a kid on day one, if you start with $10,000 invested in the market, is automatically a millionaire by the time they're, say, in their 40s. That's what I want to be talking about, is combat the popularity of socialism by actually making more people capitalists in the first place. And I think that's the kind of constructive solution set that I'd like to see our conservative movement do a better job of standing.
Give people a vision of the upside rather than the downside where everyone has to participate in some government program. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so I want to ask you about this. Seemingly against all the odds, President Trump beat back the Californication of America in 2024. So my question is, can we stop that same sort of thing from happening in places like New York City and other big cities in America?
I'd like to, but I would like to tell you also that history teaches us sometimes we have to learn lessons, and sadly, sometimes we have to learn them the hard way. Now, I say this as somebody who actually lived in New York for about a decade. I want to see New York City continue to remain the center of excellence in the world, to remain the place where pioneers and ambitious people aggregate. It's part of what drew me there as a young man after I graduated from college. But you know what? If New York City is going to go the failed direction of socialism, as the current trend might suggest, the beauty of our system is we live in a federalist country, a system with federalism, where people can move. And one of the things I'm looking to do is in other parts of the country, what used to be the frontier in Ohio, to make that the new frontier. What was the first frontier can be the next one. And so that's the beauty of the country, is even the failures of socialism come with a kind of creative destruction where when one model that once succeeded, capitalism in New York City, now goes the direction of failure under de Blasio, now Mamdani, that's an opportunity for new parts of the country, like Ohio, the state that I'm hoping to lead, to be able to set up the new frontier where we celebrate ambition and success and excellence, and yes, I'm not afraid to say it, capitalism.
Yeah.
And I think that in that sad tale potentially in New York City is also a flip side of that, a brighter option for what the possibilities are in the heartland of the country, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to lead the way no matter what happens in New York City.
Federalism and the ability to vote with your feet are very powerful forces for reshaping the world. Vivek Ramaswamy, we got to leave it there. Thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate it.